So, I want to talk about when empathy goes wrong. And I kind of hesitate to use those words, but maybe it's better to say when empathy goes too far. If we see empathy on a spectrum where maybe one point of empathy is to be able to witness someone with some warmth, with our capacity of presence and awareness there, and to see them in their experience and honor that they're experiencing it and that they're whole enough to handle it. If we see them in that light versus if we see them with pity or um, assume that we feel something, that they feel something about it, then we can project our own feelings on them. And in return, they feel differently in relation to us. Have you noticed that where someone believes in you versus where someone also feels a similar doubt as you towards you, like, "Oh, yeah, I'm not sure." You might feel differently in your body and in your heart. So that's where I like to be in seeing myself as full and seeing another as full and witnessing what's happening and just being present, being there. It doesn't mean I have to give advice or support or say loving words. It might just be as much as seeing what they're experiencing. I see I see your pain. I see that you're in this experience. From that place to maybe taking on some of their emotions or when we assume, as I said, that someone feels a certain way, we're projecting our feelings. But those are our feelings about that kind of experience. Have you ever had an experience where someone told you that they're in a certain situation or something happened to them, and you say, "Oh, no," or you say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And they say, "Oh, I'm fine about it." And sometimes that's denial, but sometimes that's actually true, right? And so where there's a mismatch to how you assumed they would feel and they actually feel. And maybe they feel upset later, but right now in the moment, they're saying they feel fine. It's a different topic to challenge them or say, oh, to have empathy and say, oh, wait, it seems like there's something else here. That's something else. But when we just outright assume something and that's not where they're at, we get this chance to see that that was our own projection. And where we think, or we can call it empathy, to have offered that feeling from us, it's not actually empathy. It's actually being in our own experience, seeing it from our way. Also, when we feel for someone, we feel for them instead of them feeling for themselves in a way. Instead of seeing them and trusting their own ability to feel and experience, we might take on that whole energy of the feeling and they may be discarding it or leaving it with you. Maybe not, but that's possible. That whole dynamic is a very developmentally young experience for the person that might be discarding it and that you may be the parental figure holding and being that digestive space. And this is an interesting dynamic because then we also need to look at if you're the one being that parental figure or holding space, why are you doing it? It can be easy to say that it's empathy and I'm being caring and supporting someone, but is that serving a purpose for you that also is a pattern of yours or is something that keeps you in a cycle or a smaller space for yourself, a dependency for yourself? Do you depend on other people to need you, Or do you pride yourself on the ability to use this tool and keep others dependent on you? Does this give you your validation or enoughness like it has for me in the past of varying degrees? There's a whole dynamic of empath narcissist that people label as this empath narcissist dynamic, where someone who's really empathic and intuitive and sensitive they mutually attract each other. Someone who has traits of narcissism that uh, may draw the attention towards them and need that kind of support and dependency and can hook someone in to be that for them in almost every capacity or to varying degrees of their lives. There's a whole That's a whole different topic, and there's so much more to that story. But we often see the empath with more empathy, I guess. We look upon that more favorably to be the empath in that situation, to be the helper in that situation, rather than the helped. We see that perhaps the empath is doing something better than the narcissist is doing, because sometimes the person we call the narcissist, I really don't like to use that label. We often see them as like lashing out if the other person isn't doing what they want, or using manipulation to keep the person who is very sensitive and caring in that space for them. And yet, doesn't the person who is empathic and sensitive do the same thing? There's a manipulation happening on both levels. When this dynamic is happening of perpetrator victim as well, when it goes to that level that one is a victim of the other, both people are tied up with some energy coming from the same energy. Both people are tied up with belief sets that come from the same similar place of worthiness, need, or validation, or dependency. Somewhere we can find that there's a place in which both are codependent. And in other cases of empathy, where empathy can go too far, is where we put ourselves aside. We put others before us and prioritize their feelings and needs, and maybe sometimes even feel an urgency about that. And we put our own basic needs sometimes or lives aside. This can happen where a mother looks towards their child and says, I need to give everything to this child. I need to be there for them. They're not feeling well in X, Y, and Z places, and I need to be there and I need to help them. And we look at that person's life as a whole, and I'm not bashing mothers at all. I think being a mother is one of the most honorable and beautiful things one can do. But when a mother puts themselves aside and focuses all their energy on their child, we do need to wonder, what about their own life? And what does that say to the child? You're worthy, but I'm not. And essentially at the bottom, that's a mother saying, I'm not worthy of taking care of myself. And that message gets transmitted to the child inherently, implicitly, in the body, in the actions. And those actions speak louder sometimes than what's covering it up, the helping that's coming their way, all the energy coming their way. And it puts that child in a position of a lot of weight. Like, I have to be so much better, or I have to have so much help, and I have to do this for my mother too. Because if I don't, then she's not going to be okay. And how different for a child to see their mother taking care of themselves, to see their mother in their fullness, giving them the space to be in their fullness or be in their struggle, whatever it is, but their mother reaching out from there helps them to see the way because their mother is part of showing them the way that she's having, opens up a pathway that a child can see, oh, I have a way too. And I am worthy of taking care of myself, and I can learn how to do that. I don't always have to just give to others like my mom's doing. There's a way that we implicitly and in some way comes out sideways that we can be just like our parents, especially with the parts of our parents we resist or don't want to be like. And this is where it can come out. We can be just like our mom that gave us all the focus and energy and gave herself none by doing that somewhere in our lives. And then we don't know how to take care of ourselves. So I've used this mother and child example, but this really can apply to any relationship. If you are giving all of yourself to your friend and nothing to yourself, or very little and not enough, not taking care of what you really need to feel full, healthy, and whole, then you're not really able to fully be present for your friend or whoever else it is anyway. But also on the receiving end, that support is coming from a very um, small capacity, small energy, and not to belittle it, but to say that there isn't much there if we're giving away everything and none to ourselves. So that's where empathy can go too far as well. It can really take a toll on someone. And on the surface, it can be seen as a selfless act. We often overstate, I think, selflessness. We see people giving so much to others and we praise that and we praise that. And how much do we praise people taking care of themselves? That's very much shifting. We're doing that so much more, at least in the fields that I'm running around, like in the mental health field, in wellness. That's shifting where we're saying, yes, good, you took care of yourself.